Hi everyone, it's Jem. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be showing you everything I coloured in the month of May. So I've worked from Fantasy Fairy Portraits Grayscale by Your Draws, Fairy Tale Princesses and Storybook Darlings by Hannah Lynn, Worlds of Wonder by Joanna Basford, and Disney's Art Deco by Hatchet Heroes. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the first page that I completed for the month of May. I actually started this one in late April, but I finished it in early May. So the first page that I'd done was Peter Pan, which is my all-time favourite Disney movie. I haven't actually done any other pages in this book yet, but I plan to because the paper quality is really nice. It works really well for a water medium. I chose this picture to start with because I saw this image, I was like, oh, it's that iconic scene from Peter Pan of Wendy, Michael and John. And I used Neocolor 2s for the background. This was just 3 different colours, I believe. I used a purple, pink and a blue, but if you mix the blue and the purple together, you get this really nice kind of violet colour. And I've done her dress in Derwent Inktense. I've done his little outfit in Inktense as well, with some white highlight to soften the colours. Same with her dress. I used some Prismacolor in 20% grey, I think, and some white for John's little nightshirt. I went around the border with some green Neocolor. I went around all of the black parts with black paper mate flare, and I just used some white gel pen to go over the stars. And I had loads of fun doing this one, and I can't wait to do more, and I'm definitely going to get stuck in this month. The second book that I worked from this month was Fantasy Fairy Portraits Grayscale by Your Draws, and I done this one. I'm really bad usually at doing skin, so I was really happy with how this one turned out. I actually tried something different. I used alcohol markers as a base layer for her skin, and then what I done was I went around the outsides of her face with some Crayola Super Tips. And what I done was I wet my finger with a water brush like that. And then I added some pigment from the Crayola Super Tips onto my fingertip. And I blended some blush on with my finger. Because I know that if I was to go in with pencils, it would be quite harsh. Or if I went in with alcohol marker, it would be quite harsh as well. And I went around the layer of her face with a darker brown shade. Same technique as with the blush, and I added some blush on the high points of her forehead, so it looks like she's kind of got a bit of a sunburn going on. And then I added loads of little freckles around her face, and I couldn't be happy with how her skin turned out. Went over her dress completely with Derwent Inktense. I went in with a little bit of white watercolour pencil while it was still wet, just to get a bit of highlight. And then I went over her wings in Crayola Super Tips again, and then layered some Prismacolor over the top with some white Prismacolor as well, just to get some highlights where I needed them. I've done the exact same technique with her hair that I'd done on her dress, which was just simple, just going over with Derwent Inktense and then adding some white highlights as her hair was still wet. And I'm really happy with especially how her skin turned out. I went around the outsides, just these little bits here, with some Neocolors. And this paper took it really well. All the water, as you can see, it's not warped or anything. It turned out perfectly. And I've done another page in this book as well, and I've done this one. What I've done with her was I started with the border using Cotton Watercolour, the palette. I started with a dark to light gradient, starting from the outside with black, building it up with emerald green and then some white. And I really like how the background kind of makes the picture pop. I actually did pretty similar with her skin, but on this one I decided to go in with the actual Crayola Super Tips to the page. And then what I've done was I wet my finger with the water brush and then went in and blended it out with my finger, and that worked really well as well. Although I do actually prefer the skin on the first fairy that I done. I think it's because I had loads of fun with the freckles and her sunburn. And I went over her top with Derwent Inktense in violet. I wanted a little bit of highlight somewhere. I didn't want it to just be like block purple. So I went in with some white watercolour while it was still wet. Just a watercolour pencil. And I went over every other stripe. I've done her hair in 2 shades of Derwent Inktense, similar to the first girl. And then I used Cotton Watercolour again in purple, in dioxine purple I believe, and white. I've never used purple and green together like this before, but I do think that the combination is striking. I think it's really pretty. And I've done a page from Fairy Tale Princesses and Storybook Darlings by Hannah Lynn. This book is beautiful. I love this book so much. And I've done another Peter Pan inspired one, and I take it as Peter Pan inspired because it's from Storybooks. And there's the little ship and TikTok, the crocodile. What I've done with this one was I started off with the skin on each of the girls. I've done them all the same with a base of alcohol markers, and then I went in with the Prismacolor over the top, and I've done the same with their hairs as well. I've done a base layer of alcohol marker and then went in with a lighter Prismacolor, and I'm not too sure, but I think I might have gone around the borders with a Prismacolor that matches their tails. I use Prismacolor for the mountains, and I've actually used this blend before. It is a blend of 20% French grey, 50% French grey and some warm grey as well. And I used these shades for mountains in Maui Mermaids last year, and I really love how it turned out, so I stuck with the same colour palette. And for these rocks over here, I used warm grey and cool grey, a mixture of the two, and I used alcohol markers for the mountains, Neo Colour 2 for the water, and then on a palette I took Winsor & Newton matte acrylic white and I added loads of water to it, really thinned it out, and then I done, oh my cat, go on there mids. Oh, she wants attention. And then what I done was I done a wash over where they'd be underneath the water to get that kind of distorted underwater look. And I got a little bit messy up here with the green. So what I done was I went in with these little light pink and lavender with some Posca to go over the top. And some white gel pen on the water here. And I just done a base of alcohol marker for the sky, a little bit of Posca for the clouds. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I mean, it could be better, but I had fun with it. And that's all that matters, right? Yeah, I really had fun with this one. And I'm gonna do some more out of this book because I love handling books. I also done 2 out of Worlds of Wonder this month. And I done this horse. I thought it was a unicorn at first, but it hasn't got a horn, so it's a horse. So what I done first was I added a layer of water because I used the Gold Faber Aqua pencils. They're not very good in my opinion, but when you go in without the water, they're really hard to lay down and you don't get much pigment from them. So I laid down the water first and then the pencil glided on a little bit more smoothly. And I done an extremely light layer, really light-handed, over the entire horse. And then I used some white Winsor & Newton gouache, really watered down with a water brush, and then I went over just to make it a lighter shade of purple, because the shade of purple that I used was really deep and intense, so it needed a little bit of white just to lighten it up, make it look a little bit more pastel like the rest of it. And then I went around with some Arteza gel pen around the entire base of the horse and the hair, and I really love how that turned out. I probably would have gone back over with white gel pen on a lot of the other bits, but I didn't, so yeah. And then I done the border. I started darker at the edges. I've done that with Winsor & Newton Cotton watercolours in 2 shades of blue and some white. And then I added some Posca for the stars. And what I done with the Posca was I've got a tutorial on it on my channel. I added some water first. And what happens with that is with Posca, because it's paint and it's water-based paint, when you add water to it first and you put a dot of the white or any colour, the colour will kind of distort and it can ruin your page. But if you're going for that look and you want to use it for the stars, it works really well. The more water that you put down, the more it will disperse. So what I've done was I put a little bit of water down, like for example on this one here, I put a little bit of water down and I've done that with the Posca, blended it out a little bit and then went back in with the Posca once it was a little bit more dry, and then you get a little bit of a clearer star. But from far it just kind of looks like dispersed stars, and that was it. And I had fun with this one as well. And lastly, don't mind that, I went over all of the buildings individually with Derwent Inktense. I used some white watercolour pencil while they were still wet just to get a little bit of highlight in the places that I wanted them. And then I done this sky up here, which I love. I don't usually use these colours. This bottom part here is more my kind of style or my kind of palette that I usually would go for. But I really did enjoy painting this sky. And I used only Neo colours for the sky with a little bit of white Winsor & Newton gouache just to make it more kind of milky looking. And I've done the exact same with the bottom. Over here I used Derwent Inktense as well on all of the leaves. And then around the border I used matte black acrylic, and then I went in with the stars and this little border here, and the little bits that I missed I used some Papermate Flare, just a black one. And I had a lot of fun doing this one as well. And that is everything that I coloured for the month of May. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Make sure to like the video on your way out, drop a comment downstairs, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care guys, bye.